meet this beautiful girl, Miriam. So she hooks up with this guy, Marvin, right? All he does is drink all day, play video games, does drugs. I mean, he's a loser. Her family tried to warn her about him for years, but she wasn't having it. She loved him, stayed with him. He was very possessive of her, always tracking her on her phone. Her friend said sometimes he would pinch her on her arm super hard, leaving bruises. He would do it right in front of him. He didn't even care. But do you think she left him? Do you think that was enough for her to realize he was a bad dude and get away from him? No, not at all. You want to know what she did? She went and got pregnant by him. Remember when I told you she was smart? I meant book smart. Everything just got worse. He just kept drinking, kept controlling her life. Her parents felt like they were losing control of their daughter, so they offered to let them move in. They got to see firsthand how Marvin treated their beautiful Miriam. One day, he started choking Miriam. And thank God, at the last minute, right as she was turning blue and her eyes were rolling back in her head, her dad walked in the room and shoved Marvin off of Miriam. The next day, they made her go to the police, and she did, and she filed a report. But then the following day after that, Marvin talked her into canceling that report. Her parents told her if she stayed with him, only bad things could happen. I mean, this is starting to get really ridiculous. And they begged and they pleaded for her to stay away. But she didn't listen. She wanted to have a perfect little family with her Marvin. So her parents made them move out. Shortly after, they got another place, and 11 days later, Marvin calls 911 saying that Miriam was dead on the floor. The cops show up and find that she's bruised all over her body. The autopsy report showed that she died from brain injury and that she was strangled with bare hands. Immediately following this, Marvin was arrested. After the investigation, it came to light that he pushed her around the bathroom and choked her out and then slammed her on the ground. At the trial, witnesses testified to years of abuse from Marvin. He pleaded not guilty, trying to say that Miriam slipped on the floor. But with all the evidence and the fact that he called his mom and sister and they came over and cleaned up the bathroom as Miriam is dying in the emergency room just a mile away, the jury had no problem finding him guilty. They sentenced him to 50 years in prison, and they ordered him to pay $700,000 to Miriam's family. All of his appeals have been denied, so it is in prison where he will die. Miriam, you're a beautiful soul, but girl, you should have listened. Tragic. This famous commentator, John Hunt, was at a horse race. His daughter called the cops as there had been an intruder that had shot her sister, and her mother. The cops showed up at the house and her mom was already dead, so was her sister. These were great people with great lives. One of them was an RN, the other one was a successful dog groomer. The town was devastated. The cops started looking everywhere, and they only knew that the killer had a crossbow. They used dogs and drones. They finally spotted Kyle in a graveyard. When they closed in on him, he tried to use the crossbow on himself. He was in the hospital for 10 weeks, but then he recovered. He was trained in the military and knew how to kill someone. After investigation, it was concluded that when Hannah and him broke up, she made a list to herself of things to remember next time she thought about being with him. Even though he acted like he was cool with the breakup, he was planning on killing her the whole time. They got him on camera getting a crossbow. He even bought a Glock, but it didn't show up to the house in time. He got a knife, rope. They got him buying gas. His plan was to kill her and then burn the house down. He didn't realize the mom and the other sister. They were just kind of innocent bystanders. He also found notes planning the events. When he was questioned, all he said was no comment. He pleaded guilty. He had 3 life sentences plus 30 years. Oh yeah, they're gonna love him in prison. All young and fresh looking. This week, girl thought she was gonna go smoke a joint behind the building, ended up getting sliced up as a cult ritual sacrifice. In Knoxville in the 90s, you got this girl, Krista, alright? Her dad was never around, her mom was a drunk. When her mom died, she started using drugs, got in trouble for theft, ended up at this place called Job Corps where you try to better yourself. At this Job Corps, she met this guy. He was into dark, occult, devil worshiping stuff. Anyway, they fell in love, and they were inseparable. There was this other girl, Colleen. Krista did not like Colleen at all, became obsessed with her as a threat. Krista would go around telling people, Colleen needs to go. She's mean. But Colleen wasn't mean. So they figured out a plot, told her they were going to go smoke a joint out back, invited her to go, and then when they got behind the building, Krista started attacking her with a box cutter, sliced her all up, drew pentagrams on her chest, other occult symbols all over her body. The detective said it was a horrible scene where she kept trying to get away, but the dude would just hold her and not let her go, allowing Krista to keep slicing her more and more. Blood was everywhere. And then after, Krista, like an idiot, goes around school bragging about how she has a piece of this girl's skull. Yeah, she used a piece of cement to smash her skull open and took a piece of it with her. So when students heard this, they freaked out. Obviously, they called the cops. So the cops started investigating and found out 4 of them had left, only 3 of them had come back. So they all got questioned, and they all 3 crumbled. They couldn't tell on each other fast enough. In her dorm room, they found a piece of skull, and then they found the body in a brushy area. It's pretty much over now. Yeah, she was smiling the first day of court. Shadala turned state witness, though, and told every little detail. Krista knew she was in trouble, tried to blame her childhood. And the dude, he just said no comment. After only 1 hour, jury found her guilty, and they ordered her to be put to death by electrocution. Ooh, they gonna fry her like a chicken nugget. You ain't smiling now, are ya? After the sentence, she started shouting. The judge was like, shut your mouth and get out of my face, and kicked her out of the courtroom. Dude got 15 years. Shadala only got probation because of her testimony. Krista will be the youngest woman ever put to death by electric chair. Poor Colleen. My heart really goes out to you and your family. You're doing nothing wrong, just trying to better your life, and ended up being a sacrifice. Do you think justice was served? Let me tell you about this really close family. They lived in Carnation, a really tight community. Their mom worked her butt off at USPS. Their dad, a designer. He was the best. The son was a golden boy, and everyone knew it. The daughter, the black sheep, and she was put through it. The son had a family and a lovely wife. The daughter still at home, causing nothing but strife. Her boyfriend was a drug addict, and they were up all night, mostly pissed off at her brother and his perfect little life. When mom was finally done with their bullshit, she said, you can start paying me the full rent. So they conjured up a plan, and it was too crystal. First thing her boyfriend did was purchase 2 pistols. The next day, Christmas Eve, was supposed to be a celebration, but by the end of the night, it was total devastation. They showed up with presents like everything was okay, and then they pulled out guns and started firing away. Both of her parents were shot, waltzed, screaming. Then the 2 freaked out and started cleaning. They threw their parents in a shed out back and waited for her brother's family to come so they could attack. Shortly after her brother arrives, he had no clue the horror his parents' house would hide. They walked in expecting to see his parents so caring, but saw nothing but his sister and boyfriend, guns drawn and glaring. Shots rang out as he screamed to his kids goodbye. They shot his whole family in their chins and their eyes. But the wife had a chance to call 911 before she died. The cops surrounded the house and it was a bloody mess. With no other option, they had to surrender and confess. She said abuse from her brother had made her mind tainted. He said it was all her idea. He was manipulated. The judge laughed so hard he almost cried. He slapped them both with 6 guilty counts of homicide. And life with no parole in prison as well, they'll reside. Such a tragedy for so many good people. The whole town prayed under their steeple. Thank you for making it through the guts and gory. Maybe you should subscribe if you like these kinds of horror stories. Back again with another story to tell. This girl was locked in a box and she went through hell. Our story begins down in the Mississippi when this cute little couple was taking a little trip. All in love and calling each other honey, they were super excited to get to Greg's to pick up their money. They arrived at the house at a little past 8, unaware of the evil that was about to seal their fate. So when the time came to ask about his bread, Ben popped out of nowhere and shot him right in the head. Brooke freaked out. She thought they were just there to talk. But Gary had other ideas. He put her locked in a box. Before we go further, I have to stop, because you're going to get sick of what makes Greg's heart throb. His ex-wife said she found a bunch of his short stories, all filled with kidnapping, death, and gory. Now forward to Brooke. She's stuck locked in that box in her own horror story. When the phone was ringing and no one picked up but the answering tape, she told herself, shit, this is my only time to escape. She started banging the box as hard as she could. Eventually, those joints gave out on that weak-ass wood. Grabbing a butcher knife, she ran away. She knew in her heart, boy, today was not the day. The victim's dad said, "Let me see my son. I love him to pieces." The cop said, "No, sorry, bro." They chopped him into 88 pieces. Both of the assailants turned themselves in. Ben blamed Gary, and Gary just grinned. Ben got life in prison, so he was able to rest. Not for Gary, though. Nope. They put his sick ass right to death. If you enjoy stories that scare and fright, then how about you give this horror story a like? This is the story of Holly Osborne. She shot her husband dead after finding there was another he adored. A 911 call from Holly was placed. She said she woke up to her husband shot in the face. She was looking like a crackhead during the interrogation. She said she woke up to him dead and was filled with anticipation. The detective said, "What about those scratches on your arm?" Holly said, "It happens all the time. No need for alarm." He said, "We know he has been getting angry lately, and you don't sleep in the same bed." She said, "During sex, he hits and spanks me. One time, he even hit me in the head." He said, "But when you found him, you did nothing. I thought you were a nurse." She said, "I was in total shock. All I could do was stand there and clench my purse." He said, "Your .38 caliber was definitely used, and it is 3 rounds missing." She said, "This is starting to feel like abuse, and you're making me very pissy." The detective said, "I need to check for gun residue under your finger." She said, "You could search anything you want. Don't let it linger." Then he said, "We still have some questions yet," but she was done talking. She got up and left. The next thing she did was empty their bank accounts, and this seemed suspicious. So they questioned her for her account, but her answers were totally fictitious. The detective said, "Look, your DNA is the only one found on the gun." She said, "Well, check again, that's impossible, hun." He said, "Look, we know you shot him. Just let it go." She said, "That just didn't happen. No. He said, "All the evidence points to you and it ties. And in all my experience, evidence doesn't lie." She said, "I could give 2 cents. I want a lawyer, sweetie pie." Sad without enough evidence, they had to watch her walk away. A year later, back with new evidence, they were back and here to stay. The investigation of the phone data brought to light Chris had actually met a girl a couple weeks back on a dating site. At night, as he passed out without hesitation, Holly went through his phone for a thorough examination. I don't know what she was expecting, but she found where Chris and his new girl had been sexting. Fed up with his years of bullshit and lies, she pulled out her gun and shot him right between the eyes. Knowing the killing was done out of spite, the judge slapped her with 18 years to life. With such a light sentence, some folks were perturbed. Tell me if you think justice was served. One night, 2 men ripped Eve Carson from her home and didn't leave a single clue. Driven and focused, Eve Carson was an outstanding student. She volunteered at her local nursing home. She also helped out at food and homeless shelters. She graduated high school with honors and then went to University of North Carolina. At the age of 22, in her final year of college, one night her roommates wanted to go to a party. Eve instead stayed home to study. When her friends got back from the party around 4 a.m., they knew something was wrong. The front door was wide open and Eve was gone. After trying to call her with no response, they immediately called the cops. Earlier that morning, around 5 a.m., a woman had also called the cops, saying she heard sounds of gunshots. When the cops investigated the scene, they found Eve's body shot several times. They also found Eve's car and her computer, but after searching both, there were no leads. The police traced Eve's credit cards and found there were withdrawals. After looking at the ATM surveillance footage, they found their suspects. The cops tracked the suspects to a gas station where they immediately arrested them. The 2 suspects, Demario Atwater, had a long record, and his accomplice, Lawrence, was a minor. After they were arrested, they both denied everything, but the phone data put both of the boys at Eve's house during the time of the incident. DeMario was going to get the death penalty, so he took a plea deal and gave the details of the case and got life in prison plus 30 years. Lawrence was a minor, and he got life without the possibility of parole. The appeals court thought this was too harsh, so they retried his case, and the judge again found him guilty and gave him life without the possibility of parole. They will both rot in jail for the rest of their days. The University of North Carolina made a scholarship in Eve's honor. The state of North Carolina made a new law for gang offenses, making the punishments much, much harsher. Thank you for watching. This girl's co-worker snuck in her house and installed cameras. This is Carolyn, a very smart girl. She went to Lafayette College. She got 3 bachelors. She got a job at a marketing firm. She's not messing around. She was 26 years old and headed for the top. But one day when she went home on her lunch break, it would be the last time anyone ever saw her. Her coworkers got nervous after she didn't return from her lunch break and called the cops. So the cops, they went to her house. Fortunately, her door was open. When they went in her door, they found Carolyn dead on the ground, lying in a pool of blood. The house reeked of bleach. The autopsy revealed it was blunt force trauma and multiple stab wounds that had killed Carolyn. Whoever had done this had some deep personal rage. With all her boyfriends in the clear, they started looking at co-workers. And what do you know what? There was also a co-worker who was late from coming back to work that day. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal because he always leaves for his lunch. So when the cops dug deeper, he said that he had car problems. So when they checked to see if he actually went to the mechanic, they found that he had lied. He also had unexplained scratches on his hand. With enough of this circumstantial evidence, the cops went ahead and made an arrest. While he was in jail, the cops got a tip from an inmate who was approached by Kenneth. He told him that he wanted him to kill the lead investigator in the same manner, stabbing him with scissors and a screwdriver, and then trying to clean the scene with bleach afterwards. These were only details that the killer would know. With this new evidence brought to light, they were going to give him the death penalty. Scared like a little girl, he confessed to everything, and he told him exactly what had happened. Shortly after working with Carolyn, he began falling deeply in love with her. He became very obsessed. When she turned him down and pretty much let it be known there would never be anything between them, he just could not take it. On his lunch breaks, he would go to her house. He installed cameras, and he would go by and check them periodically, just snoop around and sniff her underwear and other weird things. And this went on for a little while, until one day, smart little Carolyn had a suspicion maybe something was going on and decided to go home on her lunch break. Well, that day, she caught Kenneth snooping around. And as soon as he saw her, he knew there was no excuse he could give her. So he grabbed a hammer and hit her in the head and then stabbed her until she was dead. With this confession, they gave him a lighter sentence of only 87 years. So no matter what, that creep is still gonna spend forever in prison. Carolyn Byington, may you rest in peace. Are you gonna let this killer get away with murder? Our story begins in New York with Miss Ellen Ray Greenberg. A beautiful soul, talented athlete. She always wanted to be a teacher, and she accomplished those dreams. And she loved her students. She soon met Sam Goldberg, a very, very wealthy guy. His brother was the biggest attorney in town. His family owned several large businesses. You could say he was connected. Sam would like you to believe that one day he just came home from the gym to find the door locked from the inside. He pounded on the door several times. No answer. So he broke the door in with his shoulder. Once inside, he found Ellen stabbed and on the floor in a pool of blood. First, he called his lawyer. The lawyer shows up. Who knows what happened? Then an hour later, he decides to call 911. When the 911 operator tells him to do simple things like check for a pulse, he's talking to her saying things like, I don't even think that's necessary, I'm not doing that. When the cops showed up to do the investigation, they missed several key things like collecting the trash from the trash bins around the complex. They moved the body around. She had 28 stab wounds in the front of her and also in the back of her, and they still ruled it a suicide. Get the fuck out of here. Her family was like, well, if it was a suicide, where's the note? All of Ellen's friends says that her behavior changed as soon as she had moved in with Sam. The forensic report showed that half of the stab wounds were from the back. Yo, how do you stab yourself in the back? So they tried to change it from a suicide to a homicide, and the case was reopened and the case was dismissed. So then a new DA picked up the case, and he sent in a piece of her spinal cord, and it showed that she was actually paralyzed from the first blow. So how would you continue to stab yourself if you're paralyzed from the neck down? So the case was reopened again, and once again, the case was dismissed. And now Sam Goldberg has a new wife, a new life, and walking around free like nothing has happened. I mean, this is all just stipulation, but you tell me if this isn't a case of where your connections and your money trump all. Come on, internet, do your thing. Ellen Ray Greenberg, hopefully your death will not be in vain. Let me tell you about this slut named Sasha. She flirted with the wrong one. She was 27 years old, very successful, top manager at her company, a very hard worker. She had a very nice apartment in a very nice part of town. One night she went to the nightclub with all of her friends. They had a great time, popping bottles, teasing all the fellas trying to approach. She was known as promiscuous, always flirting, giving the dudes the wink, using her looks to get what she wanted. You know what I'm talking about. After leaving the club with her friends, they all kind of split ways like they normally do. But when she didn't show up for brunch the next morning, they all knew something was wrong. They tried to call her, but there was no response. So they called 911. The cops broke down her door, and what did they find? Sasha, brutally attacked, dead on the floor. There were signs of a struggle. She was covered in abrasive wounds. Her phone, jewelry, they were all missing. At first, it looked like a robbery. The cops grabbed her phone, and she had sent one last text before she died, and it simply said the word Ben. That's her boyfriend. So the cops questioned him and checked out his phone data, but he was not considered a suspect as his alibi checked out. The only other person she had come in contact with was a security guard named Steven. Steven said Sasha had forgotten her keys and needed help. He had let her in, and then that was the last he had seen of her. She left a little bit later with some unknown man. So the cops scurried the CCTV footage only to find there was no unknown man. It was only her and some weird actions by the security guard, Steven. So they pulled him into a second interview. They made him take a polygraph. So they started asking him all these questions. How did she die? Electrocution? Was she drowned? And when they got to strangulation, the way she was actually murdered, his heart started jumping like a circus clown. And there was also a couple other things wrong with old Steven. Before he left, he took a piss in her toilet, and there was a thumbprint of his thumb on her toilet seat. Also, his phone data put him inside her apartment at the time of the murder. So they arrested him and charged him with first-degree murder, sexual battery, and burglary. The DA was searching for the death penalty. They wanted to fry his ass and set an example. So he gave his first witness account to get a lesser charge. He explained to the detective having to be Sasha's security guard was torture. Every day when she would come in and every day when she would leave, the little winks, the little gestures, it was just too much. He didn't know if she wanted to be with him. He would sit up at night thinking of how they would be together. It was driving him crazy. There was nothing left he could do. When he finally was able to be inside her apartment with her, just the feeling overcame him and he did not know what to do. So he just grabbed her and killed her and raped her and finally was able to fulfill that need that had been brewing for years. It's very unfortunate what happened to Sasha. We only hope her soul went to heaven. This nursing student never made it home. It was her final day at the maternity ward, as she had just finished a bunch of courses. She had plans to go to Reno, but she never was able to make that trip. Let's start at the beginning. It's the final day at the maternity ward, and she's having this little party with her friends. She's gathering up her stuff, but she has to go to her car to give her coworkers a gift. She runs out to the car, leaving her bag and jacket inside of the hospital. After about an hour, she still wasn't back. Coworkers grew concerned. So they went out to search the parking garage where she parked her car, and her car was not there. As they started to go back inside, what did you know it? Her car came back in the parking garage, but she was not in it. It was some unknown driver, and the car stopped for a moment, and the coworkers started flagging down the car, and the car just sped off. So the coworkers immediately flocked to the police station. The police found blood in the parking spot where her car was. Later, her car and her bag were found a few blocks later, abandoned. Seemingly a couple hours later, friends started getting texts saying, "I'm okay, there's nothing wrong." But her friends knew this was off. So they put out a reward. It started off at $10,000, then went to $65K, and then eventually went to $100,000K with all the donations from their friends and family. So the police started backtracking, and one name kept coming up: Giselle. Giselle hated Michelle because Michelle was friends with her boyfriend Scott. At first, Scott was a suspect, but his alibis and allowing the cops to search his phone showing that he was in the clear. But what did the cops find in his phone? Messages from Giselle popping off threats. So they went and questioned Giselle. Giselle claimed that she was sick and at a different hospital at the time of the murder. So the cops secretly put a GPS on her to watch her every move. They also went to her house and went through her trash. And then out of nowhere, Scott just finds Michelle's phone mysteriously in the back of his car. The cops knew it was put there by Giselle. They also used CCTV footage and caught Giselle using the fake ID badge, sneaking in trying to find Michelle's schedule. It was the one sending those fake texts to all the family and friends. Then the cops found Giselle's DNA on Michelle's steering wheel, and that pretty much wrapped everything up. When they got Giselle's phone, they found computer searches on how to poison someone, how to induce a heart attack. Nearly 3 months later, they found Michelle's body. Unfortunately, it was only the bones they found in the foothills of the San Francisco Bay Area. Giselle was immediately arrested. Giselle tried to claim a fight broke out, but the DA knew this was a lie. During the trial, she had no emotions. She wouldn't take the stand. It was like she didn't care. But the investigation showed that she posed as a student to gain access to a fake ID card. She walked around the hospital during the day as if she were a student, but then came back at night in a white doctor's coat and went specifically to the office and got Michelle's weekly schedule. Then lured her to the garage with a text message. As soon as she got to her car, Giselle strangled Michelle. She was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years to life. You will rot in prison, you dirty soul, for destroying such an angel. Michelle, you'll never be forgotten. This nursing student never made it home. Let's start at the beginning. It's the final day at the maternity ward, and she's having this little party with her friends. She's gathering up her stuff, but she has to go to her car to give her coworkers a gift. She runs out to the car, leaving her bag and jacket inside of the hospital. So they went out to search the parking garage where she parked her car, and her car was not there. So the coworkers immediately flocked to the police station. Seemingly a couple hours later, friends started getting texts saying, "I'm okay, there's nothing wrong." But her friends knew this was off. So the police started backtracking, and one name kept coming up: Giselle. Giselle hated Michelle because Michelle was friends with her boyfriend Scott and allowing the cops to search his phone, showing that he was in the clear. But what did the cops find in his phone? Messages from Giselle popping off threats. So they went and questioned Giselle. Giselle claimed that she was sick and at a different hospital at the time of the murder. So the cops secretly put a GPS on her to watch her every move. They also went to her house and went through her trash. And then out of nowhere, Scott just finds Michelle's phone mysteriously in the back of his car. the cops knew it was put there by Giselle. They also used CCTV footage and caught Giselle using the fake ID badge, sneaking in trying to find Michelle's schedule, and was the one sending those fake texts to all the family and friends. Then the cops found Giselle's DNA on Michelle's steering wheel, and that pretty much wrapped everything up. When they got Giselle's phone, they found computer searches on how to poison someone, how to induce a heart attack. Nearly 3 months later, they found Michelle's body. Unfortunately, it was only the bones they found in the foothills of the San Francisco Bay Area. Giselle was immediately arrested. Giselle tried to claim a fight broke out, but the DA knew this was a lie. During the trial, she had no emotions. She wouldn't take the stand. It was like she didn't care. But the investigation showed that she posed as a student to gain access to a fake ID card. She walked around the hospital during the day as if she were a student, but then came back at night in a white doctor's coat and went specifically to the office and got Michelle's weekly schedule. Then lured her to the garage with a text message. As soon as she got to her car, Giselle strangled Michelle. She was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years to life. You will rot in prison, you dirty soul, for destroying such an angel. Michelle, you'll never be forgotten. This is the tale of Ava Moing. Ava is beautiful, and she will beat your ass. She's always been a little scrapper ever since an early age, but after this one particular fight, shots rang out. So the cops were called, evidence was gathered, Ava was brought in for questioning. She simply stated how she was just trying to fire warning shots into the air, and that she only pulled the gun out when everyone else became aggressive. Someone called in and they did a police interview over the phone with a witness who stated that she had a clear shot at the window and the bullet went straight towards the victim. So the cops pressed her harder on the details of the situation, making her draw out the scene. In the video, you can even see her pushing the victim. So after drawing it out, the cop was still unsatisfied with what she was saying because it didn't make sense. So to prove his case, he showed her pictures and videos that she did not even know existed. All of the evidence, it was pretty much a given. She tried to play Little Miss Gangster that night and ended up killing 3 people. She got 3 counts of murder, and she was sentenced to 15 years behind bars. You're not so bad now, getting passed around that prison cell like a pack of ramen noodles. Our hearts go out to the victims that lost their life in this terrible incident. Let me tell you the tale of how this sex worker became a superhero. First of all, if you're new here, I'd like to say welcome. Welcome to the community. We talk about all kinds of crime here. It goes on and on. But basically, I'm a true crime storytelling channel dedicated to exploring the darkest corners of real-life mysteries. So when you feel I have earned it, go ahead and give me your subscription and join the community. Now, let's get to the story. This is Heather. She's a hardworking girl. She has her own place, her own vehicle. She works as a bartender. But where she lives in Charleston, West Virginia, sometimes it's hard making ends meet. So Heather does a little escorting on the side. Nothing wrong with it. Girl, make that money. I had to do a little dancing back in my day. Anyway, like I was saying, times were tough. She was tired. She was broke. And then the phone rang. It was a guy asking for her services. She was a little hesitant at first because she could sense a little weirdness on the phone, but she desperately needed money. So she agreed and gave him the address. He pulled up in about an hour in his gold Subaru. He greeted her at the door with a smile as she allowed him into her place. As soon as she closed the door, he pulled out a gun and said, "Look, I'm going to jail for a long time. I'm either going for rape or I'm going for murder. The choice is up to you." And then he grabbed her by her neck, snatched her up. She couldn't even breathe. All she was trying to do was get her fingers out from underneath her neck. He just raked her across the room like a little rag doll. He was squeezing her so tight. As she landed on the table, she landed right beside this yard rake that she used to clean up cat poop. So she grabbed the rake and smacked him with it. He put the gun on the table to get a better grip, and that's when she grabbed the gun and shot him right between the eyes. Terrified, she screamed and ran out of the house, barefoot down the street with blood on her. The neighbors saw this and they called the cops. The cops showed up and she was shaking and frantically crying, obviously devastated from what had just happened. The cops searched his car, and you will not believe what they found inside. You could basically call it a serial killer kit. I mean, it had everything. It had 4 sets of handcuffs, and I mean the good handcuffs, not the little cheap kind. 3 different kinds of hatchets, a sledgehammer, an axe, a battle axe, a knife, a shovel, a utility knife, 3 bottles of bleach, cleaning sponges, duct tape, large Super Duty trash bags, a firearm, a super large tub that a woman could easily fit inside, also bulletproof vest. The cops also seized his phone and used his data to search where he had been, and they started putting together that all the places that he had been were also places girls had been missing. I mean, within 3 and 4 feet of his phone. It was obvious that he was a serial killer. When they finally tracked down all the women, it was over 12 girls in 9 different states. Basically, he would go to a new location, go to the library at this place, use Backpage or Craigslist, write down the names of prostitutes and their numbers, and then he would just go down the list, calling one after another, until one would respond. And when he would show up, it would be the same thing. He would grab them by their neck and strangle them. So Heather Soul, she's a hero. She's a goddamn hero. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for ending the life of this worthless piece of crap. Think about how many girls' lives you have saved, including your own. Yeah, the world owes you a debt of gratitude. Heather Soul. Let's everybody give it up one time for my girl Heather. I hope you liked that story. You know, I'm always trying to improve my channel. If you don't mind, you could leave me a comment and tell me what you don't like with my videos. That way, I can get a little bit better. Don't worry, you ain't gonna hurt my feelings. Here's your 30-second crime quickie. Yo, this is Tiffany. She's married to Chris. They have their own studio as massage therapist. Chris had an affair a few years back. Tiffany found out, but never forgot. After Tiffany met this new guy named Jay, she thought a divorce would be a piece of cake. Chris said, please, I'll try anything. Tiff said, no, not even counseling. I'm done with the way you put your hands on me. Chris said, well, if I can't have you, no one can. Then he taped her mouth and he tied her hands. He chopped her up into 16 pieces after shooting her in the head. There was blood in all the creases as he tried to hide her in his shed. The cops showed up with a search warrant saying, we already know what you did. Put your hands behind your back. We're arresting you, kid. During the trial, he lied with all his might as the judge slapped him with 25 years to life. Rest in peace, Tiffany Morrison.